Are you a pitcher or a baseball player that just isn't sure what exercise you need to be doing for arm care because of the thousands that you see online, and you really just want to make sure you have a good, solid routine specifically for you? I'm going to go over today how we program or design programs for arm care for pitchers and baseball players that we see, along with a couple different of example exercises that we have listed on the board here. So, how do I know this? I'm Dr. Jeff Lewis. I'm the owner and physical therapist at Lewis Physical Therapy and Sports Rehab in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and I have helped countless baseball players, primarily pitchers, get back to throwing pain-free and get stronger so they can achieve their prior level of performance. So, again, I want to go over today with you guys how we program design for arm care. And arm care is kind of one of those catchwords a little bit. It can mean a lot of different things, and I do think to a degree arm care means more than the arm, but we need to make sure that we have a good program for the arm specifically before we address all the other stuff. You know, it's all good and dandy if we do all the hip mobility, thoracic spine mobility to improve really just mechanics, take pressure off the arm. But if we don't have that foundational level of strength in the arm and certain muscles we're going to talk about, then all of that is really not going to be very beneficial for us. So we really need all of it. But I'm going to cover today more specifically the arm more than anything, how we go about designing programs. So typically, you know, we see obviously a lot of guys after they get hurt, surgery, anything like that. So we really don't have they don't necessarily have a set arm care program for the first, that first part of rehab. It's really just rehab intense more than anything. When we start breaking out into the arm care programs is once guys are ready to start throwing. So the way that we go about it, or the way that I've programmed in the past, so we want to have 2 to 3 different programs, 2 or 3 different arm programs where they do one of those a week. And really in this case, for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you 3 and how we break it up. So program number 1, rotator cuff focus. We know the rotator cuff is super important for the thrower, pitchers especially. Its job is twofold. It's one, to keep the shoulder, that golf ball, centered and stabilized within the tee throughout the entire throwing motion. And the second part of it is the ability to, that's the brakes of your arm, to decelerate your arm more than anything. So we want to work on both of those qualities there more than anything. So from the rotator cuff standpoint, that first day, I generally like to go 3 to 4 exercises per program. I feel like when you get past that, you don't want arm care to be super fatiguing and taxing. You want it to be challenging enough, but it leaves them recovered for the next day of throwing, their next outing, anything like that. So, I might do some type of a banded 90-90 external rotation into a Y, so working on that throwing specific position. I might get a landmine. So a landmine is when you have that barbell on a post, and then a landmine eccentric D2 pattern where they're controlling it across their body. So again, working on those breaks more than anything. Then a dumbbell sideline external rotation. Honestly, I do this pretty much throughout the entire time that we have someone do arm care. It's one of what I found is one of the best ways to get just actual isolated strengthening for the rotator cuff external rotators. Not that these aren't bad. These definitely are good, but you're going to have a tendency to rely on other muscles like your posterior deltoid to contribute to these ones versus your posterior deltoid is really not going to have a whole lot of contribution here. It's going to be all just rotator cuff, okay? And then some type of banded 90-90 internal rotation. So as you can see here, we have a lot more work on the back of the shoulder versus the front. And the main reason being is, for the most part, guys are going to be stronger internally than they are externally. There's just a lot bigger musculature on the front of the shoulder, pec, lat, teres major, that are internal rotators. So bigger muscles are naturally going to be a lot more powerful. So we do a lot more of the external rotation work on the back of the shoulder, just so that way we're not getting too strong internally and too weak externally, because that's where you start to worry about some type of arm injury creeping into play there, okay? So that's the first one there. 2 to 3 sets. I don't think you need anything more than that, more than anything. As a disclaimer, I will use BFR with guys for arm care. Well, it just helps. You don't have to worry about doing a ton of weight, but it helps keep them not only refreshed, but get them strong more than anything. So BFR is a great, honestly, one of my favorite ways to supplement arm care for guys to keep achieving our goals without leaving them sore or fatigued for the next day. So after that, program number 2, we move on to periscapular musculature. So that's your serratus, lower trap, middle trap, rhomboid, all the muscles that are more closer to that shoulder blade more than anything. So we got some prone swimmers, so they're on their stomach, moving through that full arc, some type of end range liftoff in that overhead Y position. So we're just really building more of that positional strength, that lower trap, a serratus push-up, and then some serratus wall slide. So again, a lot of lower trap work. and a lot of serratus work. Guys are notoriously weak and not coordinated using those two muscles more than anything, so I do a lot of work there. And then the last part is going to be your stability day. So your stability day, kettlebells, great way to get them involved here. A lot of the bottom-up variations, a bottom-up kettlebell armbar. When you put that kettlebell in the bottom-up position, it's going to ramp up stability and forearm usage, muscular usage, to a different degree. Then a 90-90 carry in a bottom-up position here. And I like to do some plyo ball stuff here. So some eccentric drops. You're going to get some more stability and just burning throughout that rotator cuff and that then a horizontal abduction where you have a longer arc drop. Again, you're just going to really stress the back of that shoulder more than anything. So, I mean, it's a little bit of some eccentric. You could make the argument, hey, well, if you're eccentrically stressing the rotator cuff, shouldn't it be here? Yeah, I mean, you can really play around with it more than anything. This is just a general overview, but I like doing it on these stability days more than anything because you have to have that quick contract, relax of your internal rotators and your external rotators, right? So that is really a three day a week routine for arm care there. This should take guys no more than 20 minutes. Like, you shouldn't be spending an hour on arm care. Now, if you're spending an hour on arm care, my next question is, well, are you lifting? And if you're not lifting, you're just doing an hour arm care, different conversation. You need to be lifting. And some people make the argument, well, a proper strength program would be considered arm care, which I would agree with that to an extent. But some isolated work like this is definitely beneficial. Like you'll see in some of the ways that I program, I have some quote-unquote arm care stuff in there, all right? But again, in general, this is a good three-day a week design that you can use for arm care. One last consideration I will make here is, when do we do these during the week or whatnot? So generally, the rotator cuff is probably going to be especially if you have a lot of eccentrics in there, that's going to be your higher day. So I generally will tell guys, hey, do your rotator cuff program the day after a bullpen or a day after an outing more than anything. We essentially want to keep all of our high intensity, our high days, quote unquote high days, on the same day. That way we have the whole next day or two to fully recover. If we pitch and then we do a ton of eccentrics the next day, well, we're not really allowing that stuff to recover more than anything. So that's really how I do that. Generally, my medium days are probably going to be more of these stability days over here because it's going to be a little more challenging on the rotator cuff. And then the low day is probably going to be more my periscapular work more than anything. You should feel the burn, but it's probably not going to be as taxing as the rotator cuff more than anything. All right. So again, that is the general 3-day routine of how we go about programming arm care for guys. Again, keep it simple. Arm care gets so overcomplicated on the internet where it's like you have to do everything and anything under the sun, all these fancy different exercises. Listen, guys, I've seen it at the professional level and I've seen it at the high school level. For a lot of guys at professional level too, the basic stuff work. They're the basics for a reason. You have no business doing super fancy stuff if you can't even get through a 2x20 of sideline external rotation with 2 to 3 pounds. If you can't do that, different conversation we have here. But you don't need to be doing all the crazy stuff that you see online. So again, if you're a pitcher, baseball player, any type of throwing athlete, and you're just not sure what arm care should look like for you, have questions on that, leave a comment below. You can go ahead and like and subscribe to our page. We put a lot of weekly baseball content out there. And then check out some of our free resources below for baseball players and pitchers.